By way of introduction, AgriTech, we're the UK's leading membership organisation for agri-tech, and among our membership we have companies, organisations, research institutes up and down the UK and internationally, and we're incredibly proud to have AgriFutures grow:ag as one of our members as well. So on the call we have researchers, we have growers, we have tech developers, and we have investors, all keen to understand more about Australia as a key market. And today's webinar is one of what we call our Round the World series. Through the magic of technology, we can visit these places without having to leave our offices or navigate going through airport security, which I know at least one of our speakers has literally just done. So we're off to Australia. We're going to be hearing about the research, the capabilities, the expertise, and a really exciting event, annual event that is run every year, as most annual events tend to be. And we want to give you some insights as to how the team in Australia can help you. And this already happened. One of our members, we've referred to David Lord, who you'll meet later in the webinar. And David has been incredibly helpful, helping this company navigate the landscape in Australia, who are the key people that they need to meet. Now we're going to run until about 11:15, so we're going to be about an hour and 15 minutes. But don't worry, if you have to jump off, we are recording this, and Christina, who's in the back office, will make sure that you get what you need. And just very briefly, if you are inspired by what you've heard, obviously we'll put you in touch with the team at AgriFutures grow:ag, but they will also be in Europe for the Agritechnica conference. And there's some discussions about how we might be able to link up people, but don't fret. If you really want to follow up with anything and you want to actually have some further discussions, then they will be in Europe. Okay, so I think I have seen that Jessie is with us. So the first speaker that we're going to hear from, we've got a selection of organisations from Australia that we'll be hearing from, and the first is Hort Innovation. Now, Hort Innovation is one of the 15 Australian rural research and development corporates, or RDCs, in Australia. You'll be hearing what they do, but really they oversee the investment and marketing activities, and Hort Innovation oversees the one for, no spoiler, horticultural industries. And joining us today, we have Jessie Reeder, who's Head of Investment Growth and Commercial, and Maxi Zhang, who's the Programme Impact Manager. They both support Hort Innovation's Frontier programme, which helps source and develop solutions to address the challenges facing the industry. So I'm going to invite Jessie, are you with us, Jessie, and Maxi, to please turn on their cameras and unmute themselves, and we'll be hearing from you for the next 10 minutes. Jessie, are you incredibly stressed?
No, I'm not incredibly stressed, but I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity and the wonderfully warm introduction for planes, trains and automobiles. Hey, it's been a bit of a rough trip into the airport, but again, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for having it, and I'll be really appreciative for someone to flick through the slides, and please, if the audio is no good, not much I can do about it. So here we are, AgriTech webinar. Thank you again to AgriFutures for having us. We love the opportunity to tell the story about what we do down under, and I'm Jessie Reeder, as you heard, Head of Investment Growth and Commercial, and I work with Hort Innovation, a research and development corporation that is dedicated to fruit, nut and vegetable growers. Is probably the easiest way to explain in the outset, and I'll dive a little deeper shortly. But what we don't do is we don't work in cereals and grains, and we don't work in the animal space, but we work for 37 other really important industries. Next slide, please. Sorry, it could be a delay on my end. So really today I'm going to touch briefly on the industry and the sector at large, and just really open by putting an inflection point on the fact that we're really about solving some of the big problems that currently present the Australian horticulture sector at the moment. And we think we've got to really over-index on R&D and transformational research at the moment. It's pretty challenging. It's pretty tough going, like it is in a lot of places around the world, to be a primary producer, and Australia is no different. Very high labour costs and a very high desire from our 37 industries to drive those costs down to keep us viable and profitable. And we're all about investing alongside and with growers to get and tackle those challenges as quickly as we can. Next slide, please. So a quick snapshot here. With two parts to our business. Of the 37 levy-paying industries, they all collect the levy at the first point of sale, and we help them invest those levies back into those individual industries against their strategic investment plans on a whole range of research, development, extension, and marketing activities. Last year and the last financial year, we were around about 160 odd. It's a slightly outdated number that I apologise. $160+ million was invested into those on behalf of those industries, I should say, into a whole range of different initiatives. And the second part of our business, which you'll see here as Frontiers, is the co-investment vehicle. So by that, I mean we have an additional opportunity within Hort Innovation to invest alongside both private and public sector up to 35 cents in the dollar on transformational research and development. And last year we invested another $80+ million in addition to the levy funds. The most recent work we can lay our fingers on suggests that we are generating around about $5.57 to 1 as a benefit cost ratio. That can always be better. It's something we're hyper focused on now with some of our new investment models to really crank up the impact on that side. And in addition to that, there's just a couple of little highlight numbers there around the business and employee engagement. And it's a really fascinating business, very diverse, and we're heading in the right direction. We're really confident with where we're investing. Next slide, please. So some high level numbers for those that aren't super familiar with the horticultural sector in Australia. We're around about contributing 16.3 billion for total production value of Australian hort. So as a share of total agricultural production, that's around about 17%. As a sector, critically important, a big export focus for many of our industries as well. And it employs, as you can see there, around about 115,000, 120,000 people across the sector with the latest numbers that we have there. Next slide, please. So if we get a little bit more stuck into it, we speak to these, who are these industries? You can see there we break them up as vegetable, tropical fruit, temperate fruit, berries, nuts, and we have our green life industries, which are a range of other funds, including turf, pyrethrum, nurseries, and mushrooms. But you can see the big ones in there. We have some large industries in almonds, citrus, a significant vegetable sector, some very high value sectors in berries and others. So very diverse, many people to please, but many fascinating journeys we're on in terms of where we're expending our R&D. Next slide, please. So I'm going to speak a little bit more now to Frontiers. So this is the co-investment part of our business, as I mentioned. This is where we co-invest alongside the industries, and we get a whole range of different investments here. So this really came out of the fact that we think there are many things that individual industries can't invest in on their own, and that the collective benefit of bringing multi-industries together on those bigger, bolder problems mean we can leverage the effort and the dollar into some really meaningful initiatives. Next slide, please. So Frontiers, we invest against 5 themes: healthy living, adaptation and resilience, market growth and security, disruptive technologies and capability building. They're purposely broad, and they're a catch-all to ensure that we don't miss out on any of those fantastic ideas that reside within the Australian hort sector. From there are several pathways you can take with which to come and co-invest alongside us. So we have our innovation partnerships program. So this is the mainstay of Frontiers, which represents around about 70% of our annual investment. And they're partnerships that we have with growers, universities and others that see us invest into a whole range of different programs, from ag tech adoption and application projects in protected cropping. Automating of the nut industry is another project that's underway at the moment, looking at high value use cases for automation and augmented assist there. One of the new pathways we've just launched in the last 12 months is the Australian Grown Innovation Program. And the Australian Grown Innovation Program is a grassroots pre-accelerator of sorts that's all about backing Aussie ingenuity and putting the power back into the hands of the growers who've got that idea or that itch they want to scratch to see if they can generate new value, perhaps new value creation for the business, new revenue streams. And we've just gone through the incubate phase and now into the build phase of that program with our first cohort. And it's going really, really well, oversubscribed, and a fantastic new investment pathway for us. The last one, which is new and super exciting, it's the new shiny toy, is the Hort Innovation Venture Capital Fund. So Likely one of the only port-dedicated venture funds of its type. Certainly in the Southern Hemisphere, we're fully dedicated to investing into high growth, early stage agri-food tech businesses. And this is an initiative that's part of us distributing R&D in what we believe is more meaningful ways than just traditional research and development partnerships. The fund is now live and has some pending investments that we're looking very, very closely at the moment, and hopefully soon to be announced to kick us off. Next slide, please. So quick explanation here. This is a snapshot of where our investment went into last year in terms of the ratios. So I like to sort of explain this as this is the market voting with their feet. And so where did they want to come and co-invest with us last year? You can see quite a high proportion of the investment went into disruptive technologies. No surprises there. A technology-led future, is certainly a big area and a big demand part of our sector. And certainly some significant investment there around market growth and security. A quick explanation on the right-hand side, I'm really mindful of time to keep moving through these slides, is that essentially what we do is we invest 35 cents in the dollar on top of the co-investment that comes in. So we've got the levy money that it gets invested through the year, and then there's another parcel of money that sits on top for co-investment that we use. And that is available for domestic and international service providers to collaborate with us. Next slide, please. Again, just another quick snapshot to summarise there the investment pathways. We've got the innovation partnerships, which I mentioned, many international businesses collaborating with us there, as well as domestic service providers. We've got our Australian Grown Innovation Pre-Accelerator, which is being delivered by a startup bootcamp. We've got the Port Innovation Venture Fund on the right, which is being managed by Artesian Venture Partners. And we've got a placeholder there for a potential incubator or accelerator, which at this stage we don't think is what the market needs. We're assessing that opportunity, and we actually think there's probably a broader opportunity for an international partnership there, as opposed to building another accelerator that potentially the market isn't in demand for at the moment. Next slide, thank you. So here's a couple of projects that are potentially of interest to those on the call, to give you a bit of a flavour of the types of things we invest into. This is a program there around looking at bumblebees as commercial pollinators. There's the automation of the nut industry, which I mentioned. You can see these project numbers. You can look these up online for further information. We've got the growing horticulture through protected cropping and innovation. That's a really strong grower-led partnership there, looking at a whole range of different ag tech applications in protected cropping systems for berries and both avocados grown in substrate and under net. And we've got some other programs which are all about personal development, so leadership programs and produce executive programs. Next slide, thank you.
Got about 20 seconds, Mark.
20
Jessie,
seconds,
sorry.
That's good. So one of the last ones, so you're right, one of the last ones of real interest to us at the moment is we're keeping a close eye on ultraviolet C as a non-chemical control for pathogens in both berries and table grapes at the moment. So another project which we're actively working with an international collaborator on. I just suppose those few there, they give you a flavour of where we're investing. The take-home messages are that, yeah, we're open for business. You can co-invest with us in Australia. Our innovation fund is investing into domestic and international VC businesses, early stage startups. And I hope it gives you a very quick snapshot with not too many announcements in the background coming live from the Melbourne airport. Again, thank you for having us. Please read through the slides, and I'm sure Maxi can filter any questions as we've got.
Jessie, what a star you are. Thank you so much. Doing a webinar from an airport is not easy. So thank you so much. And what a great, I hope everybody listening to this call has noted some of those amazing opportunities that you've just outlined. So thank you. And so now to really kind of bring the programme to life, it's a pleasure to welcome Mark Triscoma, who is actually involved in the Australian Grown Initiative programme that Jessie has just described. So we're going to stay haughty. Mark is a fruit grower, apples, pears and lemons. And as we've just been hearing, this grower-led innovation, and don't we love this idea of putting farmers and growers at the centre of the innovation journey. So Mark, I can see you're on the call. So your time starts now. Over to you.
Good morning. So some of the challenges that we have been addressing through technology include, production. It's obviously the best way to reduce your cost, and we've done this through canopy development, rootstocks, varieties, fertilizer, irrigation. Labour efficiency has been a big one. I should also include there a need for education and training. I find it has been lacking and more amenity based than large scale horticulture. I do see on the horizon in Australia that we could be looking at reintroducing more of an apprenticeship based education and training system again to lead to a career in growing fruit, which I think is a big positive. Data has been a big one for us, collection and interpretation. We started years ago with spreadsheets. We've moved on from that, which I'll discuss in a bit more detail later. Irrigation. Now, irrigation for me has not been a problem, or I didn't see it as a problem until probably 9 months ago. And complacency has led to irrigation being an emergency. On one of our sites, we currently have available for this season around 20 or 30% of our normal water allocation. It's something we should have been concentrating. So irrigation has become front of mind, and irrigation. When it comes to the Australian growᴬᴳ program, the next bit with grower identity, supply chain collaboration, and transparency is the space that I'm working in there. It's a big space, and it deserves to be, because a large percentage of our costs are incurred after the fruit leaves the farm gate. And I think with some collaboration, and it would need to be real collaboration through the industry, we could make some big improvements there. So my journey in ag tech and innovation, I've over time broken them down into 3 categories. No-brainers are projects that probably should be well underway, and we should be playing in, like production, collecting production data to know our costs, canopy data to analyse our canopies and our fruit production, mechanisation. And 9 months ago, I wouldn't have had irrigation in there, but irrigation is definitely in there now. Dangling carrots is projects more like automation. They're out there, they're getting underway. It'd be great to jump on board. Growers are scared, nervous maybe, so we're waiting a little bit more before jumping right into them. And silver bullets. Now, for me, silver bullets can work 2 ways, and a silver bullet can either be a game-changing initiative for a sector, like an automated harvester. That'd be game-changing in our sector. Or it could be something that I've found that it's something we're chasing, that perhaps if we address an issue in our growing practices, we can probably solve without it. So I was big for a while on, for example, variable rate sprayers, because we planted blocks with staggered pollinators, which made the canopy and the block less uniform than it should be. Since changing our canopies and planting solid rows of pollinators and getting a much more uniform canopy, I don't see as much of a need for something like that. So a silver bullet can work 2 ways. The next slide, please. So then we look at current solutions and where I sort of feel that we may be going from here. With our production, we've started a big turnover in canopies. We've moved to 2-dimensional canopies that maximise light interception. It has increased production, and we find in these canopies that measurable amount of kilometres of fruiting wood in a canopy is critical to use your scanners and to get great data and uniformity through the canopy. Labour efficiency, we've moved away from using ladders. 5 or 6 years ago, I think, may have been the last time we used a ladder. We've moved into mechanisation with work platforms for pruning, hand thinning and harvest. And the future, I see some of these tasks being automated, and that will be great. When it comes to data, we started off, like I said, with spreadsheets to collect our production costs. We've then moved into apps, and we've tried a number of them. And they work well, and we get big data now. When it comes to our crop loading and fruit counts, fruit size, we used to do that by hand as well. We used to go into a block and measure 20 fruits with a caliper each week to measure fruit size. Now we run through with a canopy scanner. We do every third row and get big data. It's working well. Improvements in these areas, I'd see, obviously, especially with scanners, it's machine learning. They need to learn about the canopies. They're doing that, and they're doing it well. We're seeing progress, so we're quite happy there that we're headed in the right direction. When it comes to our irrigation, we used to use, we still use gypsum blocks, a G dot. The dots light up when it's wet. They go away when it's drier. That's how we use the system we use to monitor our irrigation. We've dropped the ball there. There is a lot of good stuff out there for irrigation. We should have been onto it, and we're going to be jumping onto it fairly quickly. Now it's really important. When it comes to the Australian Grown Innovation Program, with the grower identity, the supply chain collaboration, and transparency, it's a big space. We're working in it. Obviously, we see that collaboration is key for any project to work in such a big area. It's key. It's important. It's been raised as being important in more sectors than just the apple and pear sector. So it's becoming important to a lot of industry sectors. But well, my vision is, anyway, I can see through digitisation, gamification, consumer engagement, and storytelling, we can make some real game-changing headway in that space. If we move on to the next slide, please. So our experience with the good and bad aspects of agtech and innovation adoption. On the good side, we've seen increases in production through our canopies, which has been good. We see between 30 and 50% generally increase in production. Labour efficiency, we have improved labour efficiency, getting rid of ladders. It's not always cheaper. Some tasks are. We find that the canopies that we use now can be more expensive to prune, but it's well worth the money because they produce more. And data collection. So if we weren't collecting good data, we wouldn't know these things. And that's what we need, is big data. Big data gives you the best opportunity to make the best decisions and analyze everything that you do. And yeah, we find that we're doing that through the big data. Bad things that we found is sometimes backup support's not readily available with products coming from all over the world. I think we need, really, when something is sold in another part of the world, in another time zone, we do need people to carry a lot of parts. We do need good dealer networks established to carry these products. Otherwise, I've seen projects that are hampered seriously because these things aren't in place. I've also found, through my experience, that there aren't a lot of complete fixed solutions just offered off the shelf. The key to it is that we have to start somewhere, do trials, investigate things, and they'll evolve over time. All our data collection, our scanners, they're getting better all the time. They're learning. And if we don't start, we'll be left behind.
1 minute, Mark, please.
One interesting one that I've seen is investment and milestone structure can sometimes hamper projects. Big projects sometimes need more time than investors are willing to allow, and milestones don't line up, and I've seen them fall over. My mistakes personally, you need to make sure that the solution is fit for purpose. You know, I went to America, looked at a canopy there, brought it back to Australia, put in maybe 15 hectares of it. It didn't work for us. We changed it all back over. I also let efficiency lead to cost cutting. So we implemented our platforms We thought we'd done as much as we could. We put GPSs on them. We started setting timers. We met the lower cost, but our production went down over 2 years. So that's a big mistake, getting into cost cutting rather than efficiency. And I spent a fair bit of time chasing silver bullets like an automated harvester. It's best not to chase silver bullets. Sometimes a no-brainer will solve the problem. That's all from me. Thank you.
Mark, fantastic. And what a very reasoned and rational and thoughtful overview of your journey. And I think a lot of that resonates. I'm loving the no-brainers, dangling carrots and silver bullets. That's a fantastic demarcation of them. Mark, thank you so much. Can you stay around a little bit if anyone has any questions on the platform?
Sure.
I hope so. So again, if anyone has any questions for any of the speakers, please do type them in the chat. We don't have time for to ask questions, but if you type them into the chat, hopefully there'll be somebody will be around to pick that up. Okay, so we are now moving on to the grow:ag, the AgriFutures grow:ag platform. And I'm delighted to welcome David Lord, who's the Senior Manager for Customer and Growth for the grow:ag platform. Lisa, now we all say that the platform and the data and the information online can help inform and catalyze those collaborations. And this platform really does. David, I'm going to leave it to you to explain it all. Over to you.
Thank you, Belinda, and the whole AgriTech team, Sophie, Christina, and everyone else. So we connected with Belinda back in, last year in the UK, and we really partnered with AgriTech to bring together the stakeholders across not only Australia but the UK AgriTech ecosystem, and we're doing this to build awareness of the challenges that you're hearing from Mark and later from Sam, and the opportunities where there are, the chances for people on this call to partner in our respective systems. So really excited for this opportunity. Also would like to welcome the AgriTech members and the broader UK AgriTech community for joining this webinar, or those that are watching post this event. Now, before I talk a little bit about AgriFutures and the platform, I just wanted to acknowledge on behalf of AgriFutures Australia, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on whose land we meet today. So for me, that's the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I'd like to pay my respect to their elders past, present, and emerging, and further extend that respect to any other Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders present here today. So who are we? So AgriFutures Australia, like Hort Innovation, is one of 15 rural research and development corporations. And essentially we invest in research, development, extension to increase profitability and sustainability of a range of different industries like rice and chicken meat. So quite different, similar to AHDB in the UK. So where AgriFutures is actually different is that our business also nurtures the development of the agri-tech ecosystem in Australia. And we do that through 2 programs. So you'll hear from Angela Wakeman about evoke:ag, our big agri-tech conference. And then I'll obviously talk a little bit about Australia's digital agri-food innovation platform, grow:ag.com. So during this webinar, obviously we'll be hearing from some producers in horticulture and dairy, but grow:ag's sole focus is really about making it easier for innovators like yourself and researchers on this call to engage with industry problems, research funding opportunities, commercializable IP in Australia, but also from around the world, like the UK. We work closely with industry partners, so the other 14 research and development corporations, universities, state agriculture departments, and of course the startup community, corporates and industry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can find on our platform and how you can build your understanding and confidence in considering Australia as a key market for your research and also your company's market expansion. Next slide. So anyone that's new to growag, please visit growag.com, set up a profile and explore the best of Australia and our global agri-food innovation ecosystem that we're nurturing. So a couple of key takeaways if you're a researcher on this call. So you'll find a lot of information about the R&D that we actually invest in Australia. So under the research project tab, you'll see or get a snapshot into 3,500 research projects that are happening across all of our different agricultural industries, as well as funding opportunities from the other research and development corporations, Commonwealth agencies, and similar type groups. So if you're a university or research institute and you're interested in working closer in Australia, connect with our team. We can profile and support your organisation connecting with similar opportunities. Now, for the innovator scale up on the call, a really interesting way to find out more is to visit the Agri-Food Tech Hub on our platform. So there's a range of guides and resources that we've developed that really make it easier for you to navigate what is quite a complex innovation system. And it really helps you make it easier to know who to connect with and really how. And for those scale ups on the call, you know, if you're looking to engage with trial partners, corporates or investors, you can jump on the platform. You can actually create a profile for your organization and list similar opportunities today. Next slide. So if you're interested in actually finding more information about those guides, so for researchers or universities, here's a nice QR code which can get you access to that quite seamlessly. Now I'll leave that there for a second, and then the next slide I'll just show you our scale up guide, and this is just a simple way of connecting with quite detailed information, you know, suiting those two different user types. So the next slide is the scale up guide. You know, you get information about different industries, some of the organizations that can support your market entry. And then obviously there's also the support from our team to help you navigate. Next slide, please. So just thought we'd also mention a UK-based scale-up, Deep Planet, who's had some quite, you know, a successful journey entering the Australian market, who participated in evokeᴬᴳ back in 2019, 2020, made some really valuable connections, started setting up a business there. They've also profiled on growag.com and used the platform to connect with, you know, research and IP that could be useful for them to integrate into their offering. So it's not just about, you know, connecting with funding and research organizations. There is also that opportunity to find IP that can help you commercialize what you're doing as well. Next slide, please.
Less than a minute, David.
Excellent. So who's using the platform? Here's a really nice little snapshot. The key thing to look at here is there's 10,000 users per month. Now, 50% of them are Australian, but the other 50 are across New Zealand, the US, Canada, many other markets. And typically they're looking for investment opportunities, IP to commercialize, and they just really want to connect with groups across the platform. If we could skip to the last slide, please. I've mentioned it, but please have a look at growag.com. If you want to find out more about how to profile on the platform, what other opportunities that we have listed, and as Belinda mentioned, we'll be heading over to Agritechnica in November. Drop us an email, sign up to the platform, and really, yeah, keen to answer any questions or spend some time talking through what we can do at a later date. Thank you, Belinda.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. And again, if anyone has any questions, either drop them into the chat now, or we will be delighted to connect you with David and the wider team. So we've been fruity and we found out about the platform. We're now going to move into dairy. And Dairy Australia is one of the 15 Australian rural RDCs, these research and development corporations that we've been hearing about, and overseeing this sort of strategic investment in R&D, innovation and partnership. So I'm very pleased to welcome Emily Samu, who is the Head of Innovation, and John Penry, who's the Principal Scientist of Dairy Australia. Totally our tribe. Emily and John, I can see Emily's on camera. So Emily, I think you're going to be doing a double act with John. So the next 10 minutes are yours. Over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Belinda. And thank you everyone for having us here today. Previous slide. As mentioned, we are one of the 15 RDCs in Australia, and we are also funded by a combination of levies paid by farmers and matching payments from the Commonwealth Government for eligible R&D activities. So Dairy Australia's primary purpose is to work towards shaping a profitable and sustainable dairy industry by providing services that benefit and advance our industry and dairy farm businesses. Next slide, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining. So this gives us a snapshot of what dairying in Australia looks like. To give you context, it's much like most other modern dairying countries in the world, where there has been a decrease over time in the number of farm numbers, but an increase in the number of the average herd size per farm, and also an increase in the production per cow per lactation. So in my working lifetime of 35 years, we've gone from about 16,000 herds in the country, and now we're down to just below 3,900. However, those herds have become much larger over the last 30 years. So we're now sitting at an average of 342 cows per herd. And you'll note that the average production per cow is relatively modest, so almost 6,500 litres per cow per year. And to give you some context, it's a lot less than the genetic potential of some of these animals, which would be sitting somewhere between 11,500 and 12,000 litres per cow per year. And it's really a function of the fact that we're in a pasture-based system. Next slide, please. So to give you a little bit of context about those herd numbers, you've got about 500,000 more cows in the United Kingdom. The average production per cow in the UK is sitting at around 8,300 litres per cow per year. So that's an increase of what we've got in Australia. And you've also got more farms. So rather than having 3,900 farms in the UK, you've got 7,040 or close to that. So your total herd size is bigger. One of the things which is worthwhile mentioning about Australia is we probably have the widest range of dairy production systems of any dairying country in the world. And part of that reflects not only where the continent is situated, so we have herds that are milked in a subtropical environment, all the way down to herds that are milked in a very temperate, in fact, a cold temperate environment. And so what that means is you've got a massive variation in the feed base that is available. About 90% of the herds in the country have a reliance on pasture as their primary feedstuff, which means that these herds are milking off pasture most days of the year. When you look at herds that have got mostly twice a day concentrate feeding, it's quite different to what you would see in the UK. And again, a wide variety of the types of forage crops that get used in these herds, from sorghum through to maize, through to summer crops which are based on brassicas. If we go to the next slide, please. Keep talking while we find the next slide. Thank you very much. So one of the things that is worth noting is we do have an increase in contained housing systems in Australia. There is about 95 herds in the country that are of this type. They're producing about 11% of Australia's national milk volume, but it's only about 2.5% of the herds. So the reason why we are seeing an increase in these types of herd types using contained housing, total mixed ration, is really in response to climate change and also in response to the fact that we need to use water to produce feed more efficiently. So it's a story about in a country where for at least 3 or 4 months of the year, the climatic conditions are such that animals are using energy to dump heat. You're trying to provide mechanical ventilation for these animals. And in addition to that, you are trying to increase their per cow production, along with better water use efficiency for the types of forages you are growing, which you then put in front of them. And these are the types of herds that you would see much more commonly in the United Kingdom. If we go to the next slide, please. One of the things that gets reflected in these production systems is the differences between calving system. So whilst we have very similar production diseases in Australia compared to the UK, and whilst you've still got all the same mechanics of having to get animals back in calf in order to set up for the next lactation, we have a variety of calving systems in Australia where the vast majority of herds are still calving either as a single group per year over, say, 3 months, or they're calving as 2 groups or a split calving system. So the vast majority of herds operate like that, as opposed to having animals calving year round, which is far more common in the UK. If we go to the next slide, please. So one of the things we're about to see is just a pretty typical setup in our calving environment. So again, these animals are living outside in 90% of the herds. They're living outside for the whole year, calving in dedicated areas. Australia doesn't have a very long history of transition cow management like we have in some parts of the world, but for the most part in the last 10 years or so, or 15 years or so, we've had good transition cow management setting them up for the next lactation. Next slide, please. If we compare these herds to the UK, I'm about to show you a photograph of a pretty standard type of UK setup. The primary thing to note is that you've got mostly contained housing in the United Kingdom, natural ventilation in most cases, but these cows are certainly protected in most parts of the year from the environment. The feed is brought to the cows, and whilst there is some grazing there, it's fundamentally a different mix to what you've got in Australia. Next photo, please. Next slide. So again, just showing you different types of bedding materials. So we've got the similar designs in Australia where we do have contained housing, but again, for the vast majority of herds, still reliant on pasture, still reliant on grazing, and as a result, a lower production system. Em, over to you again. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, JP. Next slide, please. So essentially the opportunities to be able to interact with Dairy Australia, we've just listed 3 here, but they come in the form of innovation challenges. So we have a number of innovation challenges which we put up every year, and a couple of those are currently on the grow:ag website, which David mentioned previously. So we have one around emissions reduction, looking at enteric methane reduction technologies. We also have one around workforce employee value propositions. And just recently, we launched one looking at our national dairy foragers strategy, where we were encouraging startups to be able to put in an idea that may contribute to this national strategy going forward. The second point is around research funding. So typically at Dairy Australia, we have an annual investment process whereby projects are submitted between November and January. Generally, the projects are around 3 years or more, and generally projects can vary in timeline, but those that are 3 years or beyond and above $750,000 require our board approval. So again, people can submit ideas. You can have a look at the types of projects available that we're working on the grow:ag website, and you can inquire through that avenue. The other opportunity is through partnerships. So we have a lot of ag tech and innovation partnerships, both domestically and globally. We are always looking for interesting technologies which we can help to accelerate into the Australian dairy industry and the landscape here. We have a lot of partnerships with industry, government, philanthropic organisations, private sector, and as mentioned before, we have quite a vast global network and partners that we work with all over the world, including the UK. And that's the end for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. John, perfect timing. You are bang on your 10-minute slot. So thank you very much. You've made my job very easy. So thank you for that. And again, what a very enabling and empowering organisation Dairy Australia is in terms of R&D and best practice. And speaking of best practice, it's now my pleasure to welcome Sam Simpson. So Sam looks after 400 dairy cows, Craigland Holsteins in Larpen in southwest Victoria with her husband Mark. And I'm going to say it because Sam might be too modest to, but their cattle sit in the top 5% of the Australian Dairy Herd Balance Performance Index. So Sam, I know you do a lot with data, with genetics, using properly informed breeding programs. So let's hear about tech and innovation on your farm, please.
Great. Thanks very much for that introduction, Belinda. Can I go to the next slide, please? And if you can click through the 4 points that are there. So I'm going to be talking obviously with a bent on dairy, and I guess with a view that, you know, dairy has already invested quite heavily in technology and innovation over the years, but there is still a fair way to go, as you will see as I go through. So the future with ag tech, what issues, obstacles and opportunities are on the horizon? How's it going to benefit agriculture, and in our case dairy? Who is going to be implementing these new tech advances, and do we need it all? Don't make any mistake, we want it all, but do we need it all? And I guess the tech has largely been, it's been hugely positive in our lives, but there's also downsides to tech that we need to consider. And I guess that agri-tech investments sometimes don't always make things easier. They can make them more complex and difficult for producers and users on the ground. And if that happens, then what has been introduced into the industry can simply be abandoned, or it might not be used to its full potential. So agri-tech investment must understand the existing infrastructure and the economics in the area that the investment is intended for. And I think that was highlighted fairly clearly with John Penry's showed the differences between the way that Australian dairy operates compared to predominantly barn-housed cows overseas. So knowing the area that investment has got to be made into is particularly relevant for agriculture, especially in Australia, because by its very nature, agriculture operates in rural and remote areas, and these areas are, you know, they can be underserviced or they can be undersupported, and things that can be taken for granted in urban areas. Even things like three-phase power and reliable internet and conductivity, it just can't be taken for granted that that's going to be the same right around the world. Next slide, please. So as Belinda said, I farm with my husband, Mark Billing, on a 400-cow Holstein dairy operation located at Larpent, which is just west of Colac, which is where the little red star is. So we're about 2 and a bit hours from Melbourne, more if you get stuck in traffic over the West Gate, or about an hour from the Great Ocean Road. The area, as John alluded to, is predominantly rainfall, rain-fed agriculture, and we've been operating at our location for about 100 years. And we were one of the first dairies in Australia to adopt the technology of collars and integrated computer tech systems that came through GEA, or as it was, Westphalia. I'm also a director on DataGen, and we're responsible for driving the genetic gain and herd improvement in the Australian dairy industry. And we do that working through genetic services, software development, data systems, and we work both with Australian and international customers providing software and data management solutions. Next slide, please. So I'm old enough that I actually had to Google what the next generations were actually called. So Gen Z and Gen Alpha, if you can just click through the 4 points, please. So these are under 30 years of age. They've never known a world without computers, mobile phones and smart appliances. They're working in jobs that didn't exist just 30 years ago, and they will be working in jobs that aren't existing right now. So in 30 years' time, a lot of the jobs that they'll work in, we don't even have them at the point in time. And they are the future of agriculture. This upcoming generation, interestingly, is more discerning, more educated, more connected, and dare I say more opinionated, it could be just my kids, than previous generations. They're likely to have multiple career changes in their working life. And I think that the fact that they live online and they live in real time and they live connected all the time means that the way that we do farming and farm work, particularly dairy, is not necessarily as appealing as we probably thought it was and past generations thought it was. So the traditional model of family-operated farms is being challenged through this generation, potentially not returning to the past. Next slide, please. So Australian dairy is still predominantly a generational family-run operation. As we heard from Dairy Australia, the average herd size is around about 342, and most of the production on farms is commodity milk. And up till recently, beef production was treated as a byproduct of milking cows, so surplus calves or culled milkers. We're seeing more corporates move into the industry, and these have the ability of scale and capital, which means they're more readily able to vertically integrate. If you can click through to the, keep going. Yep, that's it. So the rural industry is becoming a series of highly integrated value chains, and regardless of what business you operate in, whether it be corporate or whether it be family generational operations, whether they be small single operators, large families, producers need to operate within these sophisticated value chains. Production is going to be driven by branded products and potentially more locked into brand. And I think that this is especially true as Australian dairy has moved away from the co-op model, which focused on dealing with commodity milk, and more towards commercialised companies that actively and aggressively market their products as branded. So what is branded? Branded is basically consumer requirements, what they want, which equals quality, sustainability and welfare. So successful producers are going to manage and utilise information to make informed decisions. They'll embrace those technological changes that are coming, and they'll have to be more informed. They'll have to supply more information, be part of more auditing, and be part of being able to comply with various aspects of the value chain. And this is going to challenge the traditions of production. Next slide, please. So Australian ag is not isolated anymore. Once upon a time, I think we felt like we were at the end of the world and we were operating by ourselves, but we're not now. We're so connected. AgriTech is here and now. If you can sort of click through the first three and the next one. Yeah, that's it. So AgriTech is here and now and will influence management, measurements and products. There's more focus on changes in technology and people's behaviours. And community and consumers are having a bigger say in what we do. So in the term of natural capital, such as finance, the next 3 points, please, which is sustainability, welfare, and food experience. Now, the food experience one is an interesting one because there recently I actually had the experience where I was at a restaurant in Melbourne, a fancy restaurant in Melbourne, and the menus are actually delivering a story about the food that's about to be eaten. And consumers want and enjoy to know how their food was bred or grown, how it was raised or treated, and how humanely it may have been dispatched. And these are impacting the way in which we farm and produce food. And it's important to note, I think, that this particular group usually has little or no connection with primary production. However, they hold a huge sway with their voting numbers, and as such, they're able to drive change in regulation in agricultural industries. Next slide, please. So this one I actually pinched from AgriFutures. And I think reading through those, and I've read through this a couple of times, the major opportunities and challenges I think are exactly the same. I know this was 2022 to 2027. They're still exactly the same. I'm not going to talk to every single one of those, but the first column of accelerating demand for food and fibre, we've got an increasing world population. We've got and with that world increasing population, many of those have got an increase in discretionary income as well. And some of those markets were previously existing on basic or staple food, and now they're demanding value-added products and food. So that's very much changing the way in which we are providing food and fibre to the world market. And reducing food waste as a challenge, I think that goes right back to the farm level as well. And I won't go through the others for time, but I think that is an interesting slide, which is well worth reading over. Next slide, please.
You've got less than a minute, Sam.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so just quickly, so the next interest areas that really I sort of came up with, if you can just click through those, there's 3 there. Data, and a lot of these are what Mark brought up. Data as far as ownership, who owns the data, how is this going to be different in different countries, is there legislation that's going to be different? Methane and greenhouse gas emissions, I think, are topical everywhere. There is a lot of research and development and trial work that's happening. However, a lot of it is still in its infancy, and we're still not quite sure of the long-term benefits or the long-term issues that may be there for health and welfare of animals, especially in dairy cows. And also we don't exactly know how some of the things like sensors and monitors are actually going to work necessarily in real time in dairies in a working environment. We've got them in trial, but not necessarily in all of the dust and all that sort of stuff in a fair dinkum working dairy. I just wanted to touch a little bit on that innovative technologies, machine learning and AI. AI in the dairy industry is actually artificial insemination. I'm talking about artificial intelligence here. This one I think is really quite an interesting one and a really big one. I think that in some cases technology is added to our workloads, maybe not necessarily physically. I think it's helped with that OH&S area, but certainly from a bookwork perspective and from a mental perspective. I think that AI can help us make huge leaps in terms of streamlining information transfer. And I think that at the end of the day, that's essentially what we want to do for our end producers. We don't want to provide them with more ways of doing, improving their farming if it's just going to simply increase their workload. My last slide. So in summary, I think to remain competitive, producers should and must embrace ag technology and innovation. To do that, you've got to have a structured framework. Don't just buy everything on a whim. We don't need it all, even though we want it all. Ag tech providers therefore need to understand the motivations and barriers that we face as producers in our particular areas and in our particular countries. And the barriers aren't linear and sequential, so don't overcomplicate and make the solutions too complex. And that's it for me. Thanks, Belinda.
Brilliant, and I love that distinction between want and need, and that's brilliant. And thank you for bringing your crystal ball to today's webinar. I think that's given us a bit of an idea as to what the future is going to look like. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. And as ever, any questions for Sam in the chat, please. Okay, and then our final speaker is Angela Wakeman. So Angela is Acting General Manager for the AgriFutures Global Innovation Network. And I've never managed to make it to evokeAG. When I was in Australia in 2020, I had to leave before evokeAG started, which is to my intense annoyance and disappointment, because it is literally the event on the planet to go to. So Angela, over to you. Tell us all about it.
Thanks, Belinda. Surely 2026 is right up your alley for attending. Thanks for the introduction, and a big hello to everyone online. I'm coming to you from Wiradjuri country and would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Next slide, please. So a little bit about evokeAG. So evokeAG is the premier global agri-food innovation event that unites the agri-food innovation community across the Asia Pacific and around the world. It offers a unique platform where startups pitch their potential, scientists showcase their discoveries, producers share their experiences, global business leaders share their insights, and industry experts debate their opinions. This event is the largest showcase of agri-food innovation and technology in the Southern Hemisphere, and facilitates investment, fosters innovation and creates impact, which is reflected in our new evergreen event theme, which is Invest, Innovate and Impact. Next slide, please. So a little bit about evokeAG 2026. We're thrilled to be returning to where it all began in Melbourne, Victoria on the 17th and 18th of February in 2026. This will be our 6th iteration of Evoke, and it's being held at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre. So why Victoria? Victoria is home of 1/4 of Australian farm businesses, 14 agricultural research and development centres, 11 universities and a thriving startup ecosystem, making it the real ideal setting for evokeAG. So what to expect? Building on the momentum of this year's event, we're curating a program that brings together the full spectrum of agri-food innovation under the one roof. So you can expect to be inspired by global thought leaders, connect with startups, producers and investors, discover the future of food, farming and tech, and attend an event that is underpinned by 3 key pillars, which is Inspire and Provoke, Showcase and Educate, and Connect and Collaborate. You'll also see our signature elements like Startup Alley, Scale Up Station, our demo stage, Culinary Capital, X Factor Breakfast, and the R&D Impact Hub, featuring all 15 RDCs, all return. So evokeAG is powered by AgriFutures Australia and funded by the Australian government, but we're also extremely lucky to work with our platinum partner Elders and our host state partner Agri-Victoria, both of which go above and beyond to help us deliver such an impactful event for our audience. Next slide, please. Just thought I'd cover off on a couple of highlights from this year's event. evokeAG 2025 was held in Brisbane. And Brisbane was our biggest event to date, both in audience numbers and in floor space. We welcomed just under 2,000 delegates from 25 countries from around the world. We featured 40 startups in our Startup Alley and 12 scale-ups in our scale-up station. We had 57 sideline events that were held in and around Evoke. They were put on by those within the ecosystem, and we also welcome 8 international delegations, one of which was Innovate UK, who are lucky enough to come and attend and support us each and every year. Next slide, please. So in terms of key opportunities and dates, if you're keen to be part of evokeAG in 2026, there's a number of ways in which you can do this. Applications are now open for our evokeAG Startup Program, which consists of 3 streams: Startup Alley, Culinary Capital Dinner, and the evokeAG Australian Landing Pad, which is an intensive market entry program designed for international agri-food tech startups looking to establish a presence in Australia. Applications for the startup program close on the 24th of October. We're still accepting EOIs from suitable companies to be featured in our scale-up station. So again, if you know of any scale-ups, please reach out or share my details with me. Share my details with them. We also welcome international delegations. So again, if you would like to organise one or work with others who might be interested in doing so, we'd love to talk to you and discuss how we can offer some support. Early bird tickets are now on sale and pricing finishes at the end of this month. So getting quick for those cheaper prices. And we'll be launching the event program in early October. So please keep an eye out for further announcements on sessions and speakers. Next slide, please. We also offer a range of partnership opportunities designed to ensure our partners receive maximum value. So again, if you're interested in partnering with us, we'd love to hear from you. Next slide, please. And there's just some contact details. Please get in touch if we can assist in any way. Thank you so much for your time. Back to you, Belinda.
Thank you, Angela. Oh my goodness, do I want to be part of that? I gather it's really fantastic. And as you say, Innovate UK very often take a mission out. We haven't heard yet whether they're going to be, whether there will be UK opportunities, but we'll follow that up and find out for you. Okay, well, we have come to the end. I think the plane has, the virtual plane has landed and is at the gate. So we will be asking the flight crew to put the doors to manual and to release your seatbelts. The recording of today's session is in your member stash. If you're a member of AgriTech E, on the website, go to the member stash and you can see the recording. If you're not a member, well, you know what you need to do. So you have a team on the ground in Australia to help, as I hope is clear, in AgriFutures Grow Ag. And I just wanted to close with a comment from Sam, the headline from one of her slides: Australian agriculture is not isolated anymore. And absolutely, it shows that there's a wealth of fantastic stuff going on, a lot of similarities, a lot of resonance. And I hope those of you on the call have found some opportunities there. And we are here to help and support and broker further links. So with that, I will wish you a good evening from one side of the planet and a nice day from the other side of the planet. Thank you for joining us and see you next time.